Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill. Wheelchairs, special orders, motorcycles, camcorders, rechargers, converters, power inverters. For work, for home, power tools, cell phones. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? It is episode 105. That's right, episode 105 here on Hawaii Football Now. Episode 2 of the season following the Week 0 game in Nashville for the University of Hawaii. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes back with you as always, getting you set for Week 1, technically, second game of the season coming up. And it'll be a quick one, comes up on Friday as Stanford comes to town for the University of Hawaii's season home opener at Ching on Friday at 5 p.m. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union. We'll spend the first half of today's episode kind of breaking down the Vandy game that was. And boy, was it a game that Hawaii had, losing 35-28 in SEC territory. Had the football late with a chance to tie it up, but ultimately fall a touchdown shy against the Commodores. We recorded this Wednesday morning. It's just after 7 a.m. We're set to release this tomorrow, August 31st, which would be the day before the game, right? As we got this short week with the Friday game coming up to close out this week in the home opener for the Bows. All right, quick opening drive here. Before we get into anything, we just want to ask Hunter if he has any predictions. Maybe he can read some tea leaves here. Hunter predicted the score last week. He thought it was going to be 34-27 Vanderbilt. Which, I think was a pretty optimistic look at Hawaii. Competitive. Obviously, that was going to be inside the number as Hawaii was getting about 17 points, 17 and a half when we recorded it. I think it closed at Vanderbilt minus 17. So Nostra Hunter, this is your time in the sun. And I love, and this is what I love about our listeners and viewers, like so many guys in the comments, right? Just like Hunter, man, call the score. And they remembered it. To be honest, I had forgotten what your score was. I remembered it was like a touchdown, but I had forgotten like the exact number. And as I was watching the game, at home with a couple of friends, I was like, this is kind of, I kind of remember it. And then of course I just, just check the comments because those guys keep all the receipts. So well done by you, sir. And, have you thought about making that a career?
Man, I think there's some merit because I don't know if you heard the story, Jordan, but last week I went to the Wahine soccer game and a friend jokingly asked me if I could pray and ask what the score was going to be. That was the whole thing. And so felt like I heard something, and that was I thought I heard 3-1 Hawaii's going to win, and they won 3-1. And so I'm telling the story on the air, and then Josh was immediately like, all right, well, predict the UH score. Let's try it now. And we were pretty close. So I don't know. I think maybe we'll do that at the end of this episode, maybe for
hey, you got to keep it going. We've only got 12 games left. So, you got to keep it going.
To our commenters, I will not be helping y'all for your trips in Vegas. I just want that to be abundantly clear. If you find yourselves on the roulette table, these powers are purely G-rated, so they only go so far.
Yeah, they're for fun. I guess we should put a disclaimer out there, right? We haven't run this by the attorneys to get the official legal disclaimer, but yeah, no, all for fun. Don't hold Hunter to it. He is not Vicky Valancourt, and he is not telling you that's what the score's going to be when it comes down to it. So we'll get Hunter's prediction a little bit later here in episode 105. All right, before we hit the game time, I want to remind you that Hawaii Football Now was brought to you by HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, they are committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branch locations statewide and convenient digital banking services. As a leader in providing support for the islands, HawaiiUSA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing successes with members, local businesses, and the greater community. Visit HawaiiUSAFCU.com. All right, game time. Vanderbilt 35, Hawaii 28. UH in it until the very end. Hawaii covers as 17-point underdogs. The over hits. That one closed at 54 and a half. Hawaii, in a lot of the statistical categories, were the better team. Offensively, total offense, passing, rushing, even though both teams struggled mightily to find success on the ground. One of the big differences, the special teams yardage, the hidden yardage there, as some like to say, the kickoff return touchdown for Vanderbilt, another big punt return that set up a score, and then, of course, the 0-yard punt. And we'll get into some of those. Just kind of to start it off, Hunter, just wanted to get kind of your big takeaway here as we go through it. From my standpoint, man, it seemed like this was a game that was there for the taking, a game that, quite honestly, in my opinion, Hawaii should have probably won. I don't think it should be doom and gloom because they didn't. Look, they've never won in an SEC building, but a team that I think outplayed Vandy for significant stretches of this ball game, a team that had themselves in position, and a team that shot themselves in the foot. Kind of a lot. A lot. And I'll run through the list of errors, if you will. It's something that I think this team has addressed head on. I think something that Coach Timmy Chang has acknowledged, and we'll be looking to get better. But, grand takeaway, pretty encouraging start, albeit in a loss, in a game that I think, they can fairly feel pretty disappointed that they didn't get to start the season.
Yeah, I think it's fair to kind of acknowledge why Vandy is kind of always at the bottom of the drawer in the SEC. There were several times in that game where they absolutely let us back in that game, whether it be some extracurriculars after the whistle was blown, just not playing championship caliber disciplined football that really allowed us back in the game for mistakes that we probably wish we would have had back. So I want to say that first. That was kind of my thought, that Vandy probably could have ran away with that one and put their foot on our throat, but we kept fighting and grinding, and that's a testament to a few things. I think it's our players' grit, that warrior ethos that we'll talk about from time to time, the DNA of our team, that coaching staff. I thought they did a terrific job getting our guys ready to play with some different circumstances to begin the game. They had that hour and a half long weather lightning delay beforehand and made the team leave the stadium and go to a Marriott across the street. And because the tent that Vandy had us in, that air-conditioned tent, was deemed unsafe to house us during a storm, which also maybe not safe during a storm was their scoreboard hanging off of two cranes, which is that the most hillbilly thing you've ever seen in your life, Jordan? Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, the South is the South for a reason, and they're hanging that thing off a couple of cranes. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, like the fact that they kind of kept our boys' mindsets kind of even keeled to get us in a position to play. And I think the beginning of how that game started for us is a reason why maybe our special teams came out a little asleep with a couple of our different situations, whether it be Shipley's punt that was shanked off of his foot and it was a bad snap. Normally we don't have that kind of stuff to worry about, and then obviously the kick return, which ultimately kind of decided the game. If you take away those 7 points, we're tied and headed into overtime. So outside of that, phenomenal day at the offense, at the office offensively, I should say. I know Shag would probably want that throw in the end zone back if he could. That throw was a bad decision, and it was late. So definitely want to survive and just try to live another down in a situation like that. But all of those things can be attuned and kind of tightened up. And I don't fault him for the pick in the second half either, because we're trying to go downfield and get in that ball game late without any timeouts. And, with that being said too, just operationally, you could tell it was our first game of the season, not just from players, but coaches as well, that we're kind of getting in the groove and greasing up the hinges in a few different places. But so much positive things to build off of, Jordan, with this new era of the Timmy Chang run and shoot offense.
Yeah, it was encouraging for sure. And I had that kind of down on my list of things where Hawaii kind of didn't get out of their own way, right? I think, tried to go back and verify, they used all 6 timeouts on offense. Like that's usually not a good sign. Just trying to get the mechanics right, the operations, as you talked about. Some of the numbers here: Hawaii 391 yards of total offense. Vanderbilt 297, outgained the Commodores quite a bit, but again, that 97-yard kick return, the hidden yardage there. Hawaii threw it for 351. That's 10 yards per attempt and 13 yards per completion. Pretty good numbers. Vandy threw it for 258. Both teams ran it for basically 40 yards, right? Hawaii at 39, Vandy for 40 yards. Hawaii 25 carries, 1.6 yards per carry. Not great, yeah. Especially for a team that ran the ball pretty well last season. Overall, Hawaii 7 penalties for 59 yards. This is a group that lost the turnover battle. Didn't have a takeaway. Did have quite a bit of action in the backfield. We'll get to that here in a second when we talk about the defense, and then the 2 interceptions. Hawaii had 2 more first downs than Vanderbilt. Hawaii 3 for 11 on third down, Vandy 5 of 12, but UH did go 3 of 4 on fourth down. So you can kind of look at that as like 6 of 11, right? Converting, keeping drives alive. Showed a willingness to go for it on fourth down. Had a huge pass play over the top on fourth down early in the game as well. Vanderbilt 1 of 3 on fourth down. Unfortunately for the Bulls, 3 of 5 in the red zone, right? That's ultimately what kind of bit them as well. We've already touched on the interception down there. We talked about the 7 penalties for 59 yards. Not a ton of plays in the game, just overall Hawaii ran 60, Vanderbilt ran 56. Kickoff return for touchdown plays into that. There's some new timing rules as well that I think you can touch on, Hunter, there before we get into some of the individual numbers when you go through it. But just on paper, very encouraging the way that they were able to produce. And the one thing that I pointed out last week that I was maybe going to be watching the most was how they were going to defend the run. How would they play the run after last season, especially early last season? I think Hawaii will play better running teams in conference even than Vanderbilt. I don't think Vanderbilt's a slouch or anything like that, but I think, when you play like an Air Force or San Diego State, like they will play good running teams that'll probably be better than Vandy in week 0. Like Vandy in week 5 might be a little bit different based on that size and a couple of backs that they have. But overall, man, you hold them to like 40 yards. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good there. And I think, some of the new guys up front, Kualpehopa, some of these other guys, they played really, really well. But yeah, overall, like 116 combined plays. We've gotten used to college football where teams are running like 110 plays a game, when they go tempo, when they're trying to get up, go quick. So that was it was still a 3.5-hour football game, but just in terms of the number of pure plays, a little abnormal from the past few years, I should say.
Yeah. For those that don't know, the NCAA and the college referees have adjusted a rule that whenever there's a first down, there's no longer a stoppage to the clock. It's going to be a running clock now after first downs, which they estimate could actually shave off upwards of 10 plays for both teams. And so I don't know about you, Jordan, it didn't feel noticeably shorter. In watching this one, it felt pretty standard. But definitely does play into a few things here. I think about records. It's certainly harder to go after records when you have the ball less. I think about scores and just good old fashioned math. Statistically speaking, if you can score around 30 points with this new rule, it's probably going to be right around that mark. to win a game, depending on how successful you are on each one of your drives. You've really only got a handful of opportunities right there to reach those mathematical numbers. That's why I've said at different points why it's important for us to just get to that benchmark number of 1 score a quarter, which we did. We got to 28 points, and hey, we were in that ball game late with some circumstances that we would probably want to maybe do differently next time around. But we almost got that onside kick, and we almost shocked an SEC opponent at home. So it's just one of those things that I think it's a new set of circumstances that you got to look at from a college football perspective that maybe otherwise we haven't really had to think about before. But Hawaii had showed beyond anything else, Jordan, we have no problem moving the ball, which is super encouraging.
Yeah, I would agree. And this for an offense, I think that's still trying to, and understandably so, especially with a play caller that's taking over right this year in Timmy and trying to, take on that added responsibility. Like there will be some bumps and growing pains, but it does still kind of seem like it's an offense. And even for Timmy, trying to figure out, okay, exactly how he wants to attack. And it's still a work in progress, as you would expect it to be. But for it to look like that while still being a little, kind of molding the clay a little bit, really encouraging in a lot of ways. They had 11 possessions. They scored on 4 of them. One of them probably is a field goal. If it wasn't a 14-point game there, right, in a different scenario, they probably settle for 3 instead of going for it on 4th down and don't get it. What was that, late 3rd or whatever it was in that ball game. Some individual numbers. Braden Shager, 27 of 35, 351 through the air, 3 touchdowns, the 2 picks. Thought he, overall, really encouraging. 8 guys caught passes, including Tylen Hines, and then the 7 receivers, right? Profele Ashlock, 7 catches, 127 yards, and 1 touchdown. Not bad for his first collegiate game. Mountain West freshman of the week for the redshirt freshman out of the Texas area, Stephen McBride, the Kansas transfer. He looked good. 7 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alex Perry had 4 catches and 51 yards. Grayson Morgan, 5 grabs, 33 yards. Chucky Hines, 1 for 10. Solo Vaipulu, 1 catch for 23 yards. Little inside shovel there. Almost scored. And then Nick Senecal, 1 catch for 6 yards. And that, right, that's a lot of depth there. And that doesn't even include Kwali Nishigai, didn't catch a pass. Guys like Jalen Walthall, Jonah Panoke, Tamatoa Mokiao, Ati Malala,
Tylen Hines.
For various reasons, they either didn't catch or weren't ready to go in terms of health to get on the field. And as you mentioned, Tylen Hines, he had 1 catch for 3 yards, only 9 carries for 15 yards on the ground, though. Landon Sims had 38 yards on 9 carries, and then Dalen Morris scored the touchdown on his 1 rush attempt from a yard out. And so, you look at that, right? Look, they got a lot of dudes who can catch the ball. They got a lot of guys who can get out there and make plays. What you're seeing, right? And some of these guys are, I don't know how high up on your, armchair quarterback, I should say, depth chart, guys like Ashlock and Alex Perry were, amongst the returning commodities, like some of these guys, like the Chucky Hines, the Nick Senecals, the Jalen Walthalls, and again, some of those guys were on the field, some weren't, for various reasons. And so that it is deep, man. They go like 10 deep when it comes to the pass catching. It's really impressive, and for them to spread the ball out like that. Shager and obviously, Ashlock, McBride, Morgan were kind of the primary targets. Those guys combining for 19 of the 27 receptions. And so, we can get into the running backs here in just a bit, Hunter, but what impressed you about the pass game, and especially these receivers and Shager, and how much of the playbook are they really scratching so far? Like, how much of how deep into the run and shoot are we really seeing so far?
I would say pretty deep, man. And it was a well-seasoned, if you will, like a fine Mediterranean dish. A well-seasoned play calling game from our coaching staff. It was layered well, where it's not just the play calling, but the decisions from Shager were actually very encouraging. Taking the hitches when they're there. Throughout the years of the run and shoot, that is one of the foundations, is taking that hitch route whenever that soft zone creates that route. Rolo used to shout it at us on repeat: take the hitch, take the hitch. And those little building block plays actually set up for the house of the run and shoot to be built. The mesh routes over the middle, the quick slants. I was super encouraged to see some scramble drill too, Jordan. I don't know if you saw that, but that one to Grayson Morgan, whenever Shager went out of the pocket, 17 came back to the ball. If we can do that, that is, I mean, look at what the Chiefs are able to do whenever everybody's on the same page with that kind of stuff. I mean, sky's the limit there. And then you start throwing in a couple other kind of alternative play calling, like whenever you got Solo in there, whenever you got Tylen Hines in there and shifting from running back to open or empty, I should say, it felt very diverse in the looks that we're able to show that Vanderbilt defense, and it felt like we kept them on their heels for a lot of the game. I was super impressed with our courage to take shots with different guys, especially with Pofele Ashlock and Stephen McBride, both of which I was so just excited to see what we were going to get with them. And I think we're going to see a lot more of Alex Perry too. Just from a physicality standpoint, you want your 6'4", 6'5" receiver out there jumping for balls. You want our version of Calvin Johnson out there, just to win on one-on-one matchups against DBs. And if I could encourage Shager, I know his dad, Mr. Shager, is a loyal watcher of our show, to continue to take those jump ball in the back of the end zone opportunities, because we're going to have more of those, to not let the one interception keep you from taking those shots. Because, hey, I love putting McBride or an Alex Perry in another situation, in those winning opportunities, because one-on-one with our best guy against one of their DBs, I think we would want that opportunity any day of the week. So just because it didn't work once, I don't want us to shy away from doing that again. But you kind of said it also, Jordan, with the 3 for 5 in the red zone. I think there's room for improvement there. The run and shoot is capped a bit just with spacing in the run and shoot, in the red zone, I should say. It makes it a little difficult to create that same sort of layering and spacing in the red zone. But beautiful call for Pofele Ashlock on that kind of hesitated flat arrow route in his touchdown catch. So I know they're going to kind of tighten those screws as well. But man, it was a great day at the office for 13. I thought he threw actually incredibly accurately and made some really good decisions. So yeah, I'm really happy with the passing game, Jordan.
Yeah, look, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns. He'll look to cut down on a couple of those interceptions. I thought his accuracy improved as the game went on. You could see him get more comfortable, right? And the confidence to take the shot on 4th down. Like he's grown a lot, I think, in the 3 years that we've seen him in this program. But I thought even in this game in particular, he really started to get comfortable, to trust what he's seeing, right? And so often, and we've talked about this as well, right? Quarterbacks, you can tell how quick they're making decisions, how quick the ball's coming out of their hands. That's the real sign. Like, are they understanding what they're seeing? Are they trusting what they're seeing, and trusting their guys out there? And
I don't
I
want to
thought that
hear
was,
I don't want to hear anybody talking about lack of arm strength. That throw to McBride carried like 64 in the air.
yeah, it was a bomb.
That was a toss. I just wanted that on the record.
All right. The running game, right? Last year, at times they leaned on the running game heavily. And so much of the offseason talk, and rightfully so, was around Tylan Hines and what he could do with the football in his hands. Were they going to try and throw him the football a little bit more this year? He's the number one back. It's really him and Landon Sims, and then Solo Vaipulu kind of working in there as a blocking back. As we saw, they didn't really hand it to him. They gave him the one little screen that resulted in 23 yards. Hines and Sims both ran it 9 times. We talked about Hines 15 yards on the ground, did have the one catch for 3 yards. Sims just 38 yards on the ground when you count all the sack yardage and whatnot. Hawaii running it for right about 40 yards on the ground. What do you make of that, Hunter? What do you make of the lack of success on the ground? Look, obviously, if you're going to throw it for 350 a game, you don't have to necessarily run it for 100. But Tylan Hines, in particular, kept in check. Really wasn't a huge factor in the game, except maybe, the defense keying in on him a bit, opens things up for other guys and whatnot. He's a weapon. We've seen that. He is really dangerous with the football in his hands. Does he need to touch it more? Do they need to find different ways to get to him? Was it just a matter of matchup and how they had played Hawaii, and things could change week to week? What did you think of the running game for this group?
Yeah, I think it's more matchup. When you look at Vandy, they were significantly bigger on their D line compared to our O line, and vice versa, their O line to our D line. And it's going to be hard when you're blocking for the rush to get any kind of push against guys that are bigger than you. They may not necessarily be better, which I think is reflected in the fact that they only sacked Shager a couple of times. So I thought that they protected 13 pretty well. But they were able to fill holes, which they could get a hand on Tylan, and Tylan didn't necessarily get through that first tackle on his rushes, which is reflected in his stats right here. And, I thought Sims was encouraging, getting through on a few occasions and providing some size to our running game that we're lacking without 22, Najee Bryant-Lele, which we're very hopeful he'll be back this week against Stanford. So I think there's some improvement, obviously, that they're wanting to have here. Probably some tightening of the screws also with that offensive line, with what we're trying to do, blocking into that second level on some linebackers and getting the ball upfield. But thankfully, our offense proved that we don't need the running attack to move the ball, which was surprising and very encouraging, Jordan. Usually one affects the other. So, I think they will try to continue to put Tylan out there because he is so explosive. The big takeaway for me is that the majority of our guys, I'm going down the list right now, they went through the Vandy game relatively unscathed. We're returning from Nashville pretty healthy, which is always encouraging going into the Power Five whenever we play those teams, because it's just physically different. So I'm thankful Tylan Hines is healthy, and I think we've got much more to see for him this season.
Yeah, that was my observation. I think it's a lot of it was situational. I think as they go through the weeks, it probably behooves them to find ways to get him the football, right? Whether it's screens, whether it's throwing it to him out of the backfield, motioning him out of the backfield, just get him the football. Good things happen when he touches the football. I think what we've seen,
tunnel screens either.
Yeah, overall, right? I think what we're seeing now is this skill group, and that largely includes the receivers. It's really deep this year. It's better, than it was last year, and so they don't have to rely on Hines nearly as much. But I do think they'll want to be maybe a little more purposeful in involving him getting him touches in dangerous positions. Maybe it doesn't have to be 20 touches a game like we were clamoring for last year, just because he has, that game-breaking type of ability. You think to the run at Michigan and some of these other plays that he made. But I think it'll benefit this team overall, right? If he's in there, because we've seen over the years, right, some of those run and shoot running backs of various sizes, some small, some big, man, they can have a lot of success in this offense. And so that'll lead me to kind of my closes. It almost seemed like they were trying to do a little too much on offense, and I get it. Like you've especially as a, for Coach Timmy and as an offensive play caller, you got all these ideas, man. You got all these cool things. They work sometimes, they don't. But it's the cohesion of everything, the cohesiveness of the offense, the operational side of things as well, because you can have a lot of good ideas, but can you get them out in the play clock? Can you get them out in time? Like it just seemed like they were trying to mix in a little too much, right? I still think they're not quite there in terms of the tight end being incorporated into this. Grayson Morgan had 5 catches, 33 yards. And obviously he's going to play an integral part in the run game and whatnot. But I still think it's still a little bit awkward in that sense, and trying to move him around formationally and trying to, still commit to the run game and some of the run plays that they are running with a tight end in there, as opposed to, some of the traditional zone looks we've seen in the run and shoot and whatnot. And so I think that's still a work in progress, and maybe they pare it down. Maybe they just get better at what they're doing. Right. And maybe that works out a little bit, but all 6 timeouts on offense, I think is an indicative sign of that as well. They were still very committed to the run, even though it wasn't quite working out late in that second half when the passing game seemed to be clicking. Right. And so it's such a balance, and these are growing pains, I think, as a play caller you go through. And I'm not saying this is like, string up the red flag or anything like that, but I bring it up because I think there's still a lot of room for this thing to get refined and be even better than what we saw. And again, whether that's kind of narrowing the focus of what they want to do, or if it's getting a little bit cleaner at some of the other things and still keeping the offensive breath that they have in that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Hunter, before we move to the defense.
Yeah, I think for a lot of what the coaches try to do at the first game of the season is, in a sense, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Because you can only practice against your own guys for so long without wondering, okay, what's actually going to have some legs here and what can we build upon? So I think maybe a lot of those different packages, different things that we were seeing on offense were the coach's attempt to throw a bunch of stuff out there and see what would work for us. And I think, having Solo out there in a different capacity, in my opinion, may not necessarily be a permanent thing. It might more just be on the side of a Band-Aid while we wait for Najee Bryant-Lele to get back and get healthy. That's always been my thought there, which, hey, it almost paid off in a miraculous fashion. To me, that was one of the highlights of the game. The minute that they threw Solo the ball at Big City Diner with the ESPN crew out in Waipio yelling, "Solo!" And I mean, I thought that they scored on that play. It was so exciting. And you don't got to get the Hawaii fans a reason to get excited for a big boy running the ball. I mean, long history of that with different guys like Nady Lau and others running the rock for us with some size. So I think we'll probably see a more fine-tuned offense in the coming weeks, but game one, you're really just trying to see what works.
Yeah, that was as exciting a play as we had all year, or all game, I should say, obviously all year. The one thing I know the guys are giving a hard time. You can't fumble it on the one touch you get, right? Like you got to hold on to the football.
2 hands.
2 hands.
Come on, big boy.
Sure, get down in there.
He was out here, man.
Yeah, he saw the goal line, and I don't blame him. Getting in there. All right, defense here. What were the 2 things I think last season that were the biggest shortcomings of the defense, I guess you could say, last year. Weren't good against the run, didn't take the football away. They didn't take it away on Saturday, but boy, they got after it, right? I guess the other thing you kind of put in there, and usually these kind of help play hand in hand, they got after the quarterback a lot better than we saw last year. 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. Again, no takeaways. Probably should have had a pick 6 in that ball game. Isaiah Tufanga, 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Andrew Choi had 7 tackles, 2.5 for loss, and a sack. Peter Manuma, 4 tackles for loss. Did have the untimely penalty. Logan Taylor, 5 tackles. Roberto Edwards, 4 tackles, 3 pass breakups. One of them should have been picked. They were way better against the run. And again, what Vandy did last year, and I get it, it's a different Vandy offense because the quarterback's so different than last year, right? That guy they had last year, man, he could run. AJ Swan's much more of a pocket passer, not nearly the athletic running type quarterback than what we saw last year. So it's a little different assignment for this defense, but boy, they were much improved against the run. They were in the backfield often. A couple times probably could have cleaned up the initial contact and get a guy down, without allowing guys to break out of that initial tackle. But really, really strong start to the season, I thought, for this group. And if anything, what ultimate, and those 2 receivers are really good for Vandy, right? Yeah. Where they beat us was through the air, which I didn't think was going to be the recipe in it when that front 7 did a really good job limiting the run, and they were able to hit a couple of pass plays, the slant and whatnot, again, against man coverage, and we'll see if they mix that up a little bit. But man, this defense, if that group can play against the run anywhere close to that on a weekly basis, it's a much different equation for this team.
Oh, big time. And the glowing thing for this defense was our penetration into that Vandy backfield. The 3 sacks, the tackles for loss. We didn't see really much of that at all last year, unfortunately. And from an emotional standpoint, you feel it. You feel that when that is removed or absent from a defense. If you don't feel like you can enforce any kind of intimidation to an opposing quarterback, man, buckle up, because Division I quarterbacks, I don't care where they're playing or what kind of offense, they will eventually pick you apart. That's just what happens at this level. But there were definitely some signs of encouragement. It kind of looked like at times at the beginning of the game we were gonna see kind of that normal, oh man, I wish that we would wrap up. Guys were getting bounced off of a little bit. Mm-hmm. But then we started wrapping up and seeing tackles on the first hit later in the game, which was very encouraging. Kind of spreading the love a little bit too with guys like Andrew Choi coming around the edge. Obviously, Tufanga had a massive game for us, 8 tackles, 3 for loss, and 2 sacks. I think it's safe to say, Jordan, we are going to see a lot more from Logan Taylor. A lot more from Logan Taylor. 5 tackles is what we're used to seeing in a quarter for him. So I think we're going to see a lot more from number 16. And just some mental things too down the stretch, where I think the late hit from Peter Monema late in that game, we're going to see that kind of adjusted. That's a mental decision, and I think he's better than that, and we're going to be looking to him to be one of the leaders of our defense. I don't expect that to be an ongoing issue with a guy of his caliber and everything we saw from him last year. So yeah, some growing pains there, maybe some misalignments or what's the word? Maybe guys in the wrong spaces. I think that's why we saw that wide open slant on that throw to Shepard from Vandy's Z receiver. Outside of that, it felt like we were matched up against those guys well, and Vandy was without an answer late in that game. I mean, they were even going out there on 4th down just to stop, to keep the clock running, because they didn't want to give us back the ball and see us go down the field without much effort. So it was definitely encouraging against an SEC opponent. And I think, man, it felt like the ceiling kind of elevated for what this defense could become towards going into this season.
I think overall on both sides of the football, it was really encouraging. I think the team is deeper on both sides of the football. I think the team is more athletic on both sides of the football. I think both sides of the football have more playmakers than we saw last year. And look how many wins that equates to. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. I think, obviously of the three phases, and I'm sure if you talk to Coach Sheffield, he's probably pulling his hair out at times. Special teams needs to be better. Like there's no way around that, right? A lot of the I tried to put together a list of things where it's like, man, if they had just like gotten 1 or 2 of these, right? The 0-yard punt, giving up the kickoff return touchdown, the big punt return that results in a drive, the failed onside kick, which was done pretty well, right? But then was it Nick Senecal, right? It's like just got to stay in bounds there, right? It's a tough play because his job basically as that guy is to keep the ball in play. And so look, all of those.
Cam Stone was solid though.
Returning the football. And so there, it wasn't like a massive colossal failure or anything like that, but they got to be better. We know that. And then you throw in the false start on the goal line, the interception in the end zone, the drop pick 6, the roughing the passer, some of the clock management issues as well. And there's a pretty long list of things where I know the coaching staff has gone over, where it's like, man, if we had just done a couple of these a little bit better, clean this up, they win the game. Like, I think that's fair to say. And so kicking game's got to be better. You got to clean up some of the things. But this is a group that I think should feel, even on a short week, pretty confident coming into this Stanford game there. Hunter, did you have any other final thoughts on Vandy before we take the break? Yeah, let's take the quick halftime break here, and then we'll come back, look at Stanford when we return. It's episode 105 right here on Hawaii Football Now.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
Second halftime here on HFN. Jordan Hunter back with you, episode 105. All right, Hawaii 0-1 coming into their second game of the season. It's going to be Stanford. It's going to be Friday. Of course, we record this Wednesday, August 30th. We release it tomorrow, the day before the game. It is a short week after a lot of travel, after a game that was delayed due to weather in Vandy. Got back to Hawaii pretty late, obviously, in the scheme of things. And then they got to get right back at it with a Friday kickoff. Short week. Campus is closed on Friday. It's going to be a long weekend, right? You got Labor Day off as well on Monday. So, I don't think any of the students are complaining. National TV, 5 p.m. kickoff. ESPN Honolulu's got you covered with countdown to kickoff and the game broadcast as well. And then if you want to watch it on TV, CBS Sports Network has the national TV coverage. Stanford comes in as 3.5-point favorites at last check this morning. Remember, this opened at 10. That number has dropped significantly since the Saturday game in Vanderbilt, as Hawaii, I think, impressing a lot. The total's at 59, a little bit higher than it was in the UH-Commodore matchup as well. Fourth all-time meeting with the Cardinal for the University of Hawaii. Cardinal 3-0 in this series, with all 3 previous meetings being held on Oahu at Honolulu Stadium, by the way. That's how long it's been since Hawaii played Stanford. The last meeting coming in 1972. Wow. Season finale, where the Cardinal won that one 39-7. That was kind of the old divisional, right? You remember before they went D1, D2, D3, you had the university division, the college division. Hawaii was one of the best teams in the college division that year, finishing 8-3. All right. Any initial thoughts here, Hunter? Maybe we'll save the exact score prediction for a little bit later after we examine Stanford a little bit closer. But I feel pretty optimistic. I know this was a game that when we kind of ran through the season, you liked Hawaii's chances. This was a month before we even saw the Vanderbilt game. So Has that opinion changed at all? What are you looking forward to most here in week 2 for the Bows?
No, if anything, I feel like it's solidified it. From a statistical standpoint, Josh and I were talking about this yesterday. The CFB graphs actually has Hawaii with a 52% win percentage in this game against Stanford. And I think if there's anything that we can pull from the Vandy game that will also be applied this week against Stanford, it's our versatility on the offense with the passing game and our ability to move the ball down the field. The run and shoot, when you have a disciplined quarterback, smart receivers making smart decisions, you have a man beater and a zone beater in every play. In every play. So if you can give your quarterback time and you can let the receivers get downfield and get in those places, those spaces, there are opportunities there. Now balls need to be thrown accurately, which they were against Vandy. Guys need to make the right decisions. They did. Coaches need to put the players in the right positions with the right plays. They did that too. So there is a lot of positive to kind of pull from that first game that I don't think it's inappropriate to say that we can expect to see something similar again. Now, cap the expectations on we're going to score 50 a game now. Let's keep it within reason. I think special teams is obviously going to get tightened up. I pray that we don't give up another kickoff return for the rest of the year. I think it's safe to say that we can switch the field a little bit better with our punting attack. And I expect probably a field goal or two from Shipley, which will have a direct correlation to us kind of managing the ball a little bit better on our side of the field. If maybe one of those drives is slightly imperfect, we got to have, 35 and in. We got to get 3 points on the board just from a managing of the game perspective. So I'm expecting something in that kind of ballpark on top of that 28-point benchmark from our offense. And then defensively, we were in the right position a lot of times this last week to make a play on the ball, to kind of hinder those massive yard chunks, Jordan. Like there really weren't any ginormous bomb of plays from Vanderbilt. There really weren't. And again, it's difficult from a scouting perspective to truly say what we're going to see from Stanford. We have to kind of go off of Coach Taylor's history at Sacramento State to get any kind of idea of what we might see, because this is his first year with this team. It's kind of like teams preparing to see us. Until this last week and what we showed against Vandy, Stanford had no idea what they were going to see with this run and shoot offense. They had to probably go back to 2019, 2010, 07, and earlier before that too. So I'm sure they're kind of taping plays together to show their guys. But I don't care. I don't care what we're going to see from Stanford. I can't imagine it being all that imaginative or really unpredictable. I feel like our defense is well versed from what we see every day against the run and shoot. Our DBs and our secondary is without a doubt the strongest point of our defense, and they did a good job last week. They put our offense in a position to win. And I think it's safe to say we're going to be in a similar situation come this Friday.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest thing for me is how potent is this Sacramento State offense? Because under Troy Taylor, they were something else. He went in his 3 years there, 30-8, right? Was his record in 3 seasons as the head coach at Sacramento State. He's in his first year at Stanford. He was a Cal QB, kind of funny enough there, where, you know, this guy comes in as a Cal grad and takes over there. He took a 2-8 Sacramento State team and took them to the Big Sky Championship. So he's looking to have a similar turnaround in his first year at Stanford, a team that went 3-9 last year, 1-8 in the Pac-12 after, you know, in the 12th and final year under David Shaw. Kind of crazy to think, right after taking over for Jim Harbaugh, that he was there for a dozen years. We mentioned the 3 Big Sky titles. They hung their hat on offense. Sacramento State last year, 12-1, didn't lose until the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs, and they lost that one like 66-63 or something like that to GJ Kinney and Incarnate Word, by the way, who's now the head coach at Texas State. Shout out his 1 year as at the University of Hawaii as an assistant coach. Sacramento State, the Hornets ranked 4th nationally in scoring offense last year, 42.9 points per game last year in the FCS, fourth best. By the way, there are 3 teams that averaged more points than that. That's ridiculous. 4th in total offense. They averaged 499.8 yards per game. So they were good for 500 yards a game. And they were 7th in rushing offense at 243 yards per game. They were the only team in the country that averaged over 240 on the ground and averaged over 240 through the air. Like that is, look, I'm not saying he's going to do that at Stanford in the Pac-12. And this was year 3, and I don't know what their numbers were that very first year that he took over in 2019. Remember, the 2020 season was kind of a wash but they went 9-4, were 9th in the country in 2019, his first year there. Like, those numbers are just, that'll get you a Power 5 head job when your offense looks like that.
Machine, man. That is
something. And so, look, the cupboard's pretty bare for him at Stanford. They returned just 6 starters. And they weren't just bad last year. It hadn't been good for a few years, you know, for a team that had sustained excellence for a while and were as good as anybody in that conference and had produced pros, right, at the quarterback position that could run the football and run it right down your throat. They only went 14-28 over the last 4 years under David Shaw. They're really inexperienced at quarterback. Their leading returning quarterback is a sophomore in Ari Patu, who threw 9 passes last year. Like, that's their top guy coming back. The starting quarterback is still up in the air. If you look at the Stanford 2 deep, nobody's really listed as a start. It's a whole lot of ors. Like, it could be Patu, it could be Ashton Daniels, a junior, or a junior Justin Lamson, a Syracuse transfer. All 3 of those guys in the mix. You look at a lot of the other position groups, it's similar. E.J. Smith is their leading returning rusher, Emmett's son. He ran for 206 yards last year and 3 touchdowns. Like, that's their leading rusher, right? This is Stanford. We're used to backs running for 1,000 yards and things like that. And their top leading receiver is their tight end, Ben Urasek. Pretty good one. 445 yards last year, but only 1 touchdown. It's a defense that is led by their linebacking core. Like, that's by far their best position group, including a transfer from Florida International, FIU's leading tackler last year, in Gathan Bernadelle. It's a secondary was really the strength last year, but they lost like everybody. And so, I don't know. It's a defense that I think Hawaii can throw on. It's a defense I think Hawaii can score on. And to me, it really comes down to, like, how good's the offense going to be? Is it going to look like Sac State, or is it going to be like, hey, look, we're a little limited. We don't really have the personnel to play at tempo, to play with pace. Like, I don't know how many plays a game Sacramento State was running last year, but to score 43 a game and to average 500 yards, basically 240 on the ground, 260 through the air, you got to run a ton of plays. You got to run them quick. And so, you know, with the timing clock rules, I don't know how much that impacts the approach for Coach Taylor. And so, to me, it all comes down to that. Like, how good is their offense going to be? You know, is it going to be anywhere near that? Because if it is, then okay, maybe we're in for a shootout. The Sharps seem to like the under here when it comes to the 59-point total.
Yep. Me too.
So that I really can't tell you. Like, I'd be taking a real shot in the dark if we're going to say, you know, reading some of the local media and stuff like that. Like, it's been a mixed bag in camp. So whether it's Patu, when it's one of these other guys, whether it's a mixture, maybe they play multiple quarterbacks on Friday. I think that's what it's going to come down to, because I think Hawaii can move the ball like we saw again. I don't think this defense is any better than Vanderbilt's defense. And so I think this is a Hawaii team, albeit on a short week, albeit with a one game's worth of bumps and bruises, albeit with one game's worth of film as well for Stanford to look at. I think I'm with you. I think it's a game Hawaii has there for them if they can execute.
Yeah, I don't think Coach Taylor is exempt from the 1 to 2 year growing pains that's kind of necessary with coming to a new team. I would be shocked, Jordan, blown away if they come in like a well-oiled machine like what they had at Sacramento State. Just from an operational offensive standpoint, to be able to do that, in up tempo, in calling the right plays, in guys going to the right positions, snap, throw, catch, all of those things to be clicking at that level in your first year, that's extremely difficult to do. Extremely. Now, that doesn't say Hawaii doesn't prepare for that, but I just I think that's a little loud right off the bat. So I agree with you, it being more on the underside of that total 59. And I do like Hawaii's chances to outscore this team with what we're seeing right now. But it's our home opener, man. I'm excited. But beyond anything else, it could be a really good test and a really good show for the faithful at TC Ching this Friday.
Yeah, I'm with you. I lean that way. I guess just as the pessimist, it's like, well, I've seen a team look really bad and then a brand new wide open, up tempo offense come in and then boom, June Jones, 99, and completely change the fortunes of a team and a program. I don't know if that's, Troy Taylor's got that in the bag. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a brilliant offensive mind. And so I'm excited to see what they look like. I just don't know. Like it's hard to say. 12,000 tickets issued as of Tuesday night. 15,000 is the new capacity. I hope it fills. I hope people were encouraged by that Vanderbilt showing. And, I hope a lot of the students roll up as well. I forgot to check if that 12,000 number included the student handouts and whatnot.
Last I heard was they were about 1,500 shy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means they've gone up 2,500 since 1,500 since that number last night. So that's encouraging. It's about 13,500 right now. I would hope they'd be able to fill that thing.
Yeah, I think there was some widespread education that still needed to be rolled out to the students on how exactly they get into the game. It used to be as simple as scan your student ID, but now with I forget what the program is called, but they have some sort of a QR scanning system now. So it's slightly different that might be holding up the students. But come game day, they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Just make it easy for the kids as possible to get them in there. That's all we care about. Yes. For sure. Any final thoughts, Hunter, on the Stanford matchup before we start wrapping this thing up?
Yeah, I guess it's time for the prediction. So I'm feeling I like the under. And I think I'm actually picking Hawaii in this game. I got us 31-24.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to be just over kind of my goal for our season of 28 a game. I think Ship will probably get a field goal or two in there. And I think we actually win the turnover ratio this game against Stanford, and we get it done at home, 31-24.
31-24. Let me write that down here. 31-24 is the prediction. All righty. That would be a big one. Hawaii as the live dog here, getting about 3 to 3.5 points field goal or so, depending on where you look. All right, that'll about do it for us here on episode 105. Quick little 2-minute drill to get out of here. I just wanted to give a shout out the good folks over in Lahaina. Lahaina Luna football is on the schedule They are on the way to playing this season. That was in doubt for a while. I know some of the individual sports are getting going. Girls volleyball hasn't returned to the court yet. They are scheduled to this week. I don't know if they will be able to. They're likely a week or two away as well. Lahaina football, even though the MIL gets going this week, this week, Friday and Saturday. Their first game is not scheduled until September 30th. It gives them about a month or so to ramp up and get going as they try to figure out the logistics of where to practice and all that. Their first game scheduled for September 30th at War Memorial will be an emotional affair, no doubt about it. So just wanted to give them a shout out. Coach Dean Ricard, Coach Bobby Watson, and the guys as we go through it. All right, we'll give the final word to you, Hunter.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jordan. That's super exciting, and it's tough to say, that sports immediately makes everything better, but it certainly gives, I think, of the players something different to look at, something to look forward to, and I also think it's probably a little too vague to say that, the community is looking forward to this, just with all of the extreme circumstances that everyone's going into. But it's certainly something positive that all of Hawaii, I think, can kind of get behind and look forward to, in a sense, with regards to Lahaina. So I kind of wanted that to kind of clarify that as we end the show today, Jordan.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's gonna be exciting, it's gonna be emotional, and it's gonna be a long time coming. That's for sure. All right. I know you'll be down there on Friday, Hunter. I got some obligations, so I'll be catching it on the telecast and tuning into you guys as well on the ESPN Honolulu cast, wherever you can get that, right on ESPN Honolulu stations. You can stream it on the Sideline Hawaii app as well as on the website. All right, big thanks to our guy Jonathan for editing this all together. As always, when we get into the season, the episodes get a little longer. We got a lot to talk about. Always fun, no complaints here. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile and HawaiiUSA Federal Credit Union once again. Big thanks to you. A lot of good comments on last week's episode. We'll try to get through those as we go throughout the weeks. Always feel free to drop us a line and comment on any of the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, social media. You know where to find us. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week. And Hunter, we'll see you down at Ching on Friday.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.